Welcome to Project Next. I'm Sarah Blessing, and I'm thrilled to have my guest, Ethan Sweetland-May. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite people. Ethan called me and was like, I think I might run for state senate against Gary Byrne. I'm like, what? And then I get to know you, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like I conjured you up in my mind, the perfect candidate. And then you just keep doing it, Ethan. We're not here to talk about Ethan. We're here to talk about Ethan's plans if he can get elected. And you all, we need to get this man elected to state senate in Southern Indiana. One of the things he wants to do is a tracker. He wants to make a bill, get it passed into law, where he wants to help make a database and track domestic abusers so that we can protect people. They can look it up and see, is this person I'm thinking about dating and moving in with on this domestic abuse tracking device that the state government is providing? Oh, wow, they are. Maybe this is love bombing. Maybe I shouldn't move in this quickly with this person. This is amazing. And Ethan, you've done a lot of research. You found some other bills that are like this to model it after. It's not like you just conjured it up. You're using your intelligence and people and other things that other places that are doing this. And I am just so thrilled to have a media network where I can pump this out. So Ethan, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Sarah. You rock so hard.
Thank you so much. How are you doing today?
Doing good. It's grateful that we have universal snow melt across Southern Indiana. That was
mushy soil for those signs, right?
Oh, that's true. That's true. We got our first batch of yard signs, and those have been flying out. We had the Harrison County DIMS meeting this on Tuesday, and a whole bunch of people grabbed signs. But then I had just a ton of people messaging me asking for signs. And so last night I drove around for almost 2 hours delivering signs. It was great. So lots of
I've already passed the giant one coming into Corden.
So nice. Huge shout out to Richard and Sandy Gettelfinger for letting us put that sign up there. And yeah, is really, really sweet of them to let me use that space. And yeah, and it's exciting. People are really fired up, and we're ready for more than petty culture war. We need a legislator who actually represents the needs of our community and is doing things to bring down the cost of living and keep people safe, and instead of deputizing himself to perform skirt checks at the bathroom, which is what my opponent is doing.
Yeah, I want to talk about your opponent for a minute, because most of the time I tell people, I recommend, don't talk about your opponent, just talk about you. But your person that you're up against, Gary Byrne, is one of the worst, if not the worst, state senators in Indiana. It depends on what, level of metrics you want to rate him on. But he is very bold he pushes legislation that hurts all Hoosiers. He doesn't just say yes to it like a lot of these other people. He's writing the legislation to hurt people. And he really attacks the pride community. Yes. Like they are the devil. Like he is terrified of anybody in the pride community. He really goes after libraries. He wants to close the library by my house that I can see from my window, the Palmyra Library branch, the Lanesville one. We have little ones all over Harrison County, because Harrison County is a giant place and it takes a long time to go to the one library. And he wants to control what books we can read, and he wants to hurt our schools. He's trying to defund public education. I mean, we could do a 6-hour episode and not cover all of the damage Gary Byrne has done since he's been elected as our state senator. So I think in your case, everybody should let people know who is in power right now. And if we don't work to get you elected, that's going to happen again. Yeah.
Right. We're you're going to see more of the same. And yeah, State Senator Byrne has certainly been an activist as a legislator, even from last year when he single-handedly tried to cut consent out of as a requirement for sex ed in schools across our state. And he was pressed on that by other legislators. Like, why are you doing this? Why, who are you representing that you are trying to remove consent out of sex ed for our schools? And he just plainly was like, I did it. Nobody approached me to do it. I just did it because I think it's what should be done. And
he is so scared to talk about sex. Like it's so weird.
Well, and the thing is, I call it activism because there's no basis for it. Comprehensive sex ed includes age-appropriate discussions about consent, and it has been taught across the country for many years now, and it is proven to reduce teen pregnancy. It reduces incidence of sexual assault headed into college. Like, it is a proven way to improve the safety of kids and young adults. And so the move to cut consent out of sex ed,
like, so make it so teachers could not teach what consent means and how you should talk about, if you're in a relationship, you should have a conversation about how far you want to go, and it should be mutually agreed upon. He wants to cut teachers from being allowed to say that, which is bonkers.
To be able to talk about it in age appropriate ways.
I have a story. I have an almost 16-year-old at North Harrison Elementary, where Gary's wife is on the school board, and she doesn't always vote great. And my kid has a girlfriend for the first time. And so I'm having conversations with him, and I'm like, let's talk about consent. Do you know what consent? And he's like, yes, mom, I know what consent is. I'm like, well, how did you find out? He goes, I was taught it in my health class at North Harrison High School. All the kids at our school know it. And I would have had that conversation, and I still did, but it meant a lot to me that all the kids at North Harrison are getting that conversation. Yes. And he tried to stop that from happening.
And it's why it's so important, because, and we're going to talk, this is definitely leading into what we're going to talk about today with the domestic violence and recidivism tracker policy that I want to put forward whenever I'm elected to state senate. But raising the community's awareness, an entire community's awareness, changing the conversation and making something that might be unspeakable, something that is unacknowledged and talked about, is a way to immediately raise the bar for everybody in that community. So much, especially around intimate partner stuff, around relationships, around cultures, around the culture that you have for connection and the style of connection that you saw modeled, whether it was positive or abusive growing up. So much of this stuff is very difficult to talk about unless you're given the tools to break it down and understand it and discuss it. And we have seen the positive impact of equipping people to talk meaningfully about boundaries, about expectations. And when you have a whole community of students that together, you look at the kids around you and they look at you, and you all know the same thing. You know what it is to respect boundaries. You know the expectation is that other people have a right to say no and to stop at any time, and to have autonomy over themselves, and that you're expected, if you want to be a good person, to respect that. That is like, we could talk about that for a long time.
You really touch on something I want to mention. Having control over your own body is something that I feel like Gary Byrne doesn't advocate for. Since he didn't want, and you don't have to say this because you're running against him, but I can. Since he wanted that consent out, I kind of feel like he's in that group where they want women to be controlled by somebody. They want their father or their older brother, or they marry them off to someone they sort of pick early on in their early ages when they're very young, and the man takes care of the woman. And this is 2026. Women take care of themselves, and we get advocates that support us, and we talk about consent and boundaries, and we are in control of our own body. And so it's really important. I've spoken to people that you know too, where they said when they were growing up in a kind of Christian nationalistic type of extreme church, they were not taught that they were in control of their own body. And so that leads to them being abused. And because they don't know how to say, stop, I do not want you to do that. And if we're not teaching them when they're young and they're getting their hormones and those feelings are coming up, if we're not teaching them, who knows what weird stuff they're getting on the internet or with their friends, if they're not hearing it from a trained teacher or you know. So yeah, I'm really glad you said that, because it does seem to be a core problem. It seems to be something we're really up against in the state house with the person you are running against.
And it's really like to give It is a big shift for a lot of people who were raised in ultra conservative environments to believe that empowering people to have autonomy over themselves, empowering kids to feel comfortable expressing boundaries and to feel comfortable. It's even a big shift. This is something that is happening in a lot of families, in a lot of places, telling kids that they can say no to a hug.
Right.
This is a really
I do
basic
that with
building
my
block.
with my kids that are my 7-year-old twins. I do this. They'll
Right.
turn to me and say, "I don't feel like a hug right now."
Right.
And I'll say, "Oh, they don't feel like a hug right now, but thank you." You
Yes.
know.
Right.
Yep.
And for a very long time, the purpose of a child is to make the adults feel good.
Right.
That is, like, children are there for the delight of the adults. Children are there to not annoy the adults. Everything is oriented towards the preferences and feelings of the adults in the room. Children should be seen and not heard. Like, this is a long history of a certain way of raising children. Not everybody, not all families, not
What's
everybody.
that Shiny Happy People documentary?
Yes.
I'm thinking of that when you're talking about it because they're very strict with their kids. Like,
The Duggars.
yeah,
Yes.
they like would put like a boundary of they would put a toy when the kid's like 6 months old outside of like a circle, and if the kid grabbed it, they'd have a switch and they'd smack them with it to teach them to behave. Like, there's some weird, messed up
There's weird stuff
practices
out
with
there.
some extreme religions that we kind of need to be aware of. And like a lot of adults now have that trauma. They have that
Mhm.
trauma of what it was like growing up that way, and
Right.
we're trying to correct it. And I think a lot of us are doing a good job of correcting it, but it's still going on.
It's still going on. And
Yeah.
and kind of getting to where we're going today, kind of tying it in, like, these kinds of shifts and the implications that they have for our communities, it could appear small, but actually getting into the psychological reasons why we do things, like why you would force a child to hug an adult that they feel uncomfortable holding, that they would feel uncomfortable hugging, and what that does psychologically, how it breaks down the sense of self and the sense of having the right to refuse unwanted touch.
Yes.
No parent, I say no parent. Most overwhelmingly, parents want their kids to be safe and they want their kids to be confident. And there are all kinds of ways that we have to learn and unlearn cycles that undermine kids' safety. And so as a result, undermine adult safety, because it's the things that we learn at the most foundational level about my value, about what I can say yes, what I can say no to. These lessons are really hard to unlearn as we go on. And that goes for both people who are victimized and people who go on to abuse. And
Before we go into your
yeah.
amazing tracker, I just want to hit on something I've learned with my now good friend Rich Genzero, who I do the show from prison to pastor with.
Fantastic.
So when he was 16, he committed a violent crime and was sentenced to 14 and a half years in a maximum security prison in New York. And the reason he committed that crime was because he was sexually assaulted by several people as a young child, and he had no knowledge of how to tell his family, who would have cared and done their best to help him. He did not know what to do, and so he was full of rage and he joined a gang. And I told this to Miranda Williams, who works with this nonprofit Reform Alliance that tries to help people that are getting out of jail. And she said, I told her that story, and she said, Sarah, that's almost all of these men's stories that are in prison that go at a young age. They were molested and then they didn't know how to handle it, and then they committed a crime. But his story is different because he met a pastor in the prison who mentored him and a other bunch of group of people and helped him when he got out at the age of 30 as an adult, and helped him. And now he's a Lutheran pastor. So his story is rare, but the beginning of that story, not rare. And just this conversation, just educating people and teaching our children about unwanted touch, and also making sure they feel comfortable in telling us when an adult does something that they get an icky feeling with, and that we're not going to be mad at them no matter what, can help stop this cycle, which is still awful in our culture. It's still happening. There's so many people out there that have been abused, and if they don't get treatment for it,
It's
we're still having problems.
it's true. It's true. It's true. And it can be it can and it the lingering impacts to our communities, the lingering impacts to people's lives are they are yeah, they're long lasting. They're long lasting and
But
bring and
you
Mhm.
know what's so great about this show? You're trying to do something about it. You are trying.
We're
This is
gonna
what it almost makes me cry. I'm going to try not to cry. You are actually trying to protect the ones that are most vulnerable in this state. You
Mm.
are working your butt off to get elected. You are doing an amazing job, and I cannot explain to you how proud I am of you. And then you want to push a bill that would help the most vulnerable. So
Hmm.
let's talk about this bill. It's
Yeah.
you call it DART. You have is it
DART.
acronym?
Yeah.
You got an
Yeah.
acronym here?
Yeah. DART is kind of what we're calling it at this point. And just to kind of give a little bit of context, Tennessee actually just passed a law. They're the first state in the
Oh
union
wow.
to pass a law where they've created a domestic violence registry. A lot of people are familiar with there's national registered sex offender registries. Like there are ways of tracking certain crimes so that the community is aware if someone with this history is, and it does things like you're not allowed to live within so many feet of a school. Like there's all these things that go along with it.
Right.
So Tennessee is the first state that has created a domestic violence registry. And it's called Savannah's Law. And it got its name for a victim of domestic violence who was killed by a man who had abused numerous other women in the past. And he would just kind of roll on to the next relationship. And ultimately, so part of why Tennessee passed this law and part of why there's a petition on change.org for Indiana to do this, pass this, create a similar law. There are similar petitions all across the country. But it's been very hard for advocates to get this made into law. And one of the reasons is because it's very widespread and it would impact a lot of people. It's domestic violence. The last time I looked at the numbers, it's something like one in 3 or 1 in 4 women will experience intimate partner violence, and 1 in 8 or 1 in 9 men will experience intimate partner violence.
Yeah,
And
I know someone close to me that is a man that is stuck. I actually know two close to me men that are stuck. So that's a big stigma. We think it's
right,
just women, and it is not.
it's not, and this is the reason for pushing for. So we're calling our policy DART, which stands for Domestic Abuse and Recidivism Tracker. For those unfamiliar with the word recidivism, it means recommitting the crime.
Oh, okay.
And one of the reasons why one of the reasons to create this registry is, and this statistic surprises a lot of people, is that between 50 and 60% of domestic abusers who are convicted will reoffend within 2 to 3 years.
Oh, wow. So it's
violence.
not like jail's fixing it.
It's not like jail's fixing it, and it's not like getting a conviction is fixing it. And it's very like
it's probably making it worse because they're not getting any training or any care to stop or help with their mental health. So they don't have the tools. What tools are we giving them other than punishing them to get them to stop abusing?
Well, this is a really great point you bring up, Sarah. And because there is this narrative out there about especially men, but women as well, who lose control, fly off the handle, and do something violent to a partner, right? That's kind of the image. It's kind of what comes out of culture. It's what comes out of movies.
So it's like a mistake.
It's like a mistake. Yeah.
Mistake.
And it's because, and very often, overwhelmingly people who experience abuse do not go on to abuse. That is actually a really important thing to say. Overwhelmingly people who experience abuse in their childhood or witness an abusive relationship between their parents in their childhood, overwhelmingly, those people do not go on to become abusers themselves. But of the people who do go on to abuse, overwhelmingly they witnessed violence in their household growing up. They witnessed, or they were victimized by violence growing up. So while the majority of victims don't go on to become abusers, those who do become abusers overwhelmingly were victimized in some way themselves. So it's an important thing. It's an important distinction to make. But then also saying to that, so somebody's convicted of domestic violence, there's a jail sentence or whatever the judge decides, whatever. And then whenever they get out, 50 to 60% will recommit domestic abuse within 2 to 3 years. And that is a really, really high recidivism rate, much, much higher than things like—
That's higher than I realized.
Yeah, much like higher than burglary and even drug-related crimes. Like, it's a really high rate of recidivism. And what the narrative has tended to be about that is that, well, these are people who have emotional control problems. These are people that are flying off the handle. And so, we need to give them better tools. We need to give them better training.
This one's held a lot. What if the woman is lying?
Sure. Right. Exactly.
Which every once in a while happens. Every once in a while. Sure.
Absolutely. Sure. Absolutely. That can happen. But here's the thing. There's a guy named Chuck Derry. He co-founded the Gender Violence Institute in Minnesota. He's been working with domestic abuse, both abusers and victims, for decades. And he's done tons of research on this, and his research is a real kind of spine of how we're approaching this tracker. But this is one of the things that Chuck Derry talks about, is confronting this narrative about losing control. Chuck, interviewed thousands of domestic abusers. And one of the things he says is that if a man continued to insist that he lost control and then would hit his partner, Chuck would say, like, ask them if he ever hit his partner in church or at temple, synagogue, or the lodge.
Oh, you're only doing it when nobody else is watching you.
And exactly. And they would say, well, of course not. Of course not. And so I say it's the opposite. Where is it happening?
It's the opposite. It's a way to control the partner, and it's very calculated, and it looks like a loss of control, but they've planned it, because if they couldn't plan it, they would hit him in church. They would hit him at the grocery store. And sometimes you see that happening, but for the most part, these people know when to do it. They do it in the closed doors in their house or their apartment or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. So it's actually the opposite. It's they know how to control you and blame you. Oh, you made me lose control. So that's your fault. It's like, no, I'm allowed to be myself and mess up. You're not allowed to hit me.
That's absolutely right. Chuck has this line where he says he would ask them where violence usually takes place, and the abusers would say at home. And then Chuck's response would be, oh, so you are actually choosing where you will be violent with your partner. And he said the response was always silence. And then he'd push and say things like, do you ever hit your boss because your boss makes you angry? Or do you ever like lash out like that at work? And they're saying no. And so he's again highlighting, it's not because you're angry and out of control. You are choosing who and when and how to be violent. And this is what begins changing the direction. And he talks about how early on in his research, as he's interviewing abusers, that he would say, when he would finally get past this point, he would say, what is being violent doing for you?
Yes.
And the initial response is, well, nothing. Doesn't do anything, because they're in group therapy. They're supposed to say
they're thinking that they're losing control. It's not their fault.
Anything.
They're the victim.
Exactly. It doesn't do anything to help me, right? But then when we would press in more, he got these exhaustive lists that abusers were very, very conscious of the results that violence got them, and they liked the results more than they worried about the consequences.
That's such an important point, Ethan. these people do it because it works.
Because
They
it
do it
works.
because it works.
That's
And
right.
and when you say that, I always just think about Harrison County government because I'm trying to save the county here. And they're such bullies. Not everybody. Some of them are great people that work in the county and they're doing, as best as they can. But the main people kind of controlling are such bullies. And I'm like, why did they do that? And it's because it works.
And the so whenever he would do these breakdowns, he would get responses when Chuck Derry would ask them, finally get through, well, what is it actually giving you? Control of the money, not having to do housework, not having to deal with complaining. And then there were a few that really got my attention when I first started learning about this. And it was like, I get control of the story.
Ooh.
I get control over what she feels safe saying to her friends. I can isolate her using violence. And it does all these things effectively. And Chuck found that even when he would do the emotional regulation stuff and teach them how to do conflict discussions and stuff, they'd send these men home with this stuff. And then when they would return and he'd ask them, well, how did it go? What was the outcome? They'd say things like, well, yeah, I mean, we talked and, whatever, but it didn't work. And he's like, what do you mean it didn't work? He's like, well, she wouldn't do what I said. I didn't get what I wanted. And that's really at the heart of this, is that part of why the recidivism rate is so high for domestic abuse is because the people who are committing the abuse like the results they're getting, and they don't like the results of some other path than violence because it doesn't grant them the immediate control that they want. And that is why we want this domestic abuse and recidivism tracker. That is why we believe that this is an appropriate response for this particular crime.
Yeah. Anybody watching this, if you wouldn't mind commenting, have you ever used the database that shows whether there's a sex offender in your neighborhood? Because I have. I've used it a few times.
Yes.
And it's kind of misleading because some of the people were like 18-year-olds that were in a relationship with some of them it's like that. It kind of differs on what the offense is,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think there's issues with that sex tracker thing personally, but it's better than nothing. And so if you think, well, who's going to use it? Just ask yourself, are you using the sex offender one? Because a lot of us do use that. So think how handy it would be.
There are already networks of women who there are Facebook groups that are like, are we dating the same person? There are websites that are like dedicated to women identifying like men who serially date and cheat on lots and lots of people, or vice versa.
I like that. I'm glad that we have that. But
it's already organically happening.
Mm-hmm.
But this is very specific. This is about convicted domestic abusers. And the reason why this list,
convicted of this crime, they've been charged convicted guilty of this crime. Right. We know they did this. We're putting them on a database and letting people know what they were convicted of.
Right. It's a picture. It's a name. It's the conviction.
You need the picture because sometimes they use fake names.
Correct. So, and the reason we're doing this, you were talking about talking to your child about consent, and they're like, Mom, we all know about consent. It's all out in the open. One of the things we're saying as we talk to people about this policy and why we want to do it is that we believe safety begins with the truth. And that goes from a little kid who knows that the truth is that they don't feel good hugging this adult right now and they don't want to do it. That truth and honoring it and honoring how they feel is part of them being safe for their whole life.
Mm-hmm.
So when things are broken and things are wrong, part of creating safety is creating is creating community-wide truth about what's really happened and who's doing what.
The truth sets you free.
Right. The truth sets you free.
That's why I do lives with Project Next. I want the truth to come out. It prevents people that have like an agenda and they can't be honest from being on the show, because it takes a little bit of bravery to do a live. Yeah, I'm so for the truth. The truth keeps me mentally healthy, Ethan.
Oh, yeah.
I have to, like, you know how Taylor Swift, I love Taylor Swift, by the way. She's very open about her life, and she's really open about how she handles all the trolls that she gets, which is a lot.
Sure.
I really take a lot of wisdom from how she does that, but she's very open about her life, and she puts it in her songs, and she's so powerful, and she has so much money that she can say whatever she wants, and nobody can take her down.
Right.
And I love that about her. And I think she's a great model for all of us. But that's what I'm advocating for. The truth sets you free. We have social media now. All of us. We can say, you know, this person looked at me and shouted this comment at me when I was walking on the street. And I'm just going to let people know that this person did that. We have a better voice now. And I wish everybody used it, because I haven't been, I haven't had domestic abuse, thankfully. I haven't been hit or anything. I'm very lucky about that. But I have had bullies go after me, and I have had bullies say fake things about me. And I just like to say the truth. And I had to ask Tim. I said, Tim, will you do a show and interview me about my number one bully that goes after me and acts like he's the victim, but he's the bully? Can you interview me about it so that I can let this person know they don't get away with it? And that's my recommendation too, is you have a voice. You have, you're in control of your body. You're in control of what people do to you. And when people say fake things about you, I encourage you to shine a light and say, that's not true, because the truth sets you free. And also, you don't have to be perfect. We do a lot of victim blaming, Ethan, where it's like, well, this girl did this and this and wore this short skirt and did da 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 da. It's like, I don't have to be perfect to not be bullied.
That's right. Right. That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the things that all that stuff, public accountability, it's all great. But one of the things that this tracker is really focused on, the same way that Chuck Derry, when he's interviewing these abusers, and it's like, well, do you hit them at church? Do you hit them at the supermarket? And it's like, well, no, I don't. I hit them where I can't be seen and where it's not public information.
And a lot of times they hit them in places where you can't see.
Right.
So when they go to church, it's
where it doesn't leave visible
hair or something.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so what that is acknowledging is that this particular crime is vulnerable to public shame. It is vulnerable to being known publicly that you've done something like this. It's really important to highlight why we're pursuing a public registry for domestic violence. It isn't about being punitive. It is about safety that is created by the truth being made public. And
what does punitive mean?
Punitive meaning it's not about punishing people.
Okay.
I do not like my personal beliefs, my faith tradition. I do not believe there is a lot to be gained purely for being punitive. I think that.
So you're like revenge.
We're not doing this or punishment.
We're doing this to protect people that could be abused by these people. It's a protection, not a revenge thing. Yes.
It's about It's about protecting. It's about protecting people, but it's also about getting at the psychological protection for people who commit abuse, who think I can do this and it won't be public information. The next person I'm in a relationship with, I will have total control over what they know about my past partner. I can make them sound crazy. I can control the narrative. I can be in control of this story, and that's why abusers don't hit in church. They don't hit, in the grocery store. They are in control of what they're doing, and they are making choices about when and who they are violent to, because they think they can hide it. They think they can get away with it. and they like the results it gives them.
Ethan, you and I have stopped bullying in our lives because you and I are public and we will shine a light if somebody tries to harm us. I have stopped multiple bullying this way. I have seen my friends who will not be public, the same people that go after me, go after them. I say, make it public. Come on, do a show with me. They're too scared. That bullying continues. You're making a database to be that voice for these people that are being hurt.
Yes,
that's the voice. And that is such a gift that our government could do to actually help us, as opposed to what's happening in Indiana right now, where a lot of laws are being made to hurt us.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other part to this. So there's obviously, when we think of domestic violence, we know we have the images in our mind of what that looks like. But there are other parts to this that you wouldn't necessarily think of when you think about who and for what reason would somebody end up on DART, on this domestic abuse and recidivism tracker. Because obviously there's intimate partner violence, but another really big part of this is elder abuse.
Oh, wow.
It is a blind spot in many policies that seek to address domestic violence. Because according to the National Center for Elder Abuse, roughly 1 in 10 Americans over the age of 60 have experienced abuse. And unlike the intimate partner violence, elder abuse often involves financial exploitation. That can be present.
That's such a problem. Tim Peck talks about that a lot. It is such a problem.
Yes.
Yeah. And a lot of like our seniors are spending a lot of their mental time trying to figure out whether things are safe for them or scams, because there's so many scams.
Well, and the recidivism, the recommitting the offense of elder abuse is often as high or higher than intimate partner violence, because the offender often has legal or familial access to the victim. So again, you have a financial incentive. Again, it's private, it's not public when this kind of abuse takes place. And so included in the domestic abuse and recidivism tracker is directly also addressing elder abuse, which again,
that's wonderful.
Vastly underreported, very difficult for people to get meaningful change done. But it's so important to highlight the reason to make a public registry about this isn't specifically about punishing the abusers. I mean, listen, get me in my feels about this, and I've got lots of ideas about punishing people that do terrible things to their intimate partners and the elderly and children. Like, I've got lots of feelings about that. But in terms of what is the point of this policy, it is about disincentivizing. It is about changing the math that abusers do, where they say, this isn't going to be public information. Even if I were to be convicted of something, it's not necessarily going to go somewhere where people can easily find it. And the incentives, the getting what I want from an intimate partner, the getting financial resources, abusing an elderly person, these incentives are not worth it anymore whenever it's going to be public information that this is the kind of person that
that's what I was going to say. This would lessen the abusers, how many people they abuse. It would lessen it because they have responsibility. They have accountability. That's the main way I'm able to stop my bullies, is I just shine a light on their behavior, and they don't want people to know their bad behavior. So they stop doing it to me. Same thing. The bullies or the abusers are going to abuse less when there's consequences for them. They shine a light on their actions. So not only is it going to protect people and they can look up and say, oh, I guess I'm not going to date that person. Yes. But it also makes the people that do the abuse do less abuse.
Yes. So it's all about public safety and transparency. And it is all about, and like we talk about it as a right to know. Like in the same way that, like, when we say that kids have a right to a good education and they have a right to learn about consent and their own autonomy and and having say so over what happens to them and how they feel. You have a right to know if somebody is a domestic abuser. The public has a right to know. And there are so many stories, so many stories of people who were deceived or who were misled and ended up in relationships or ended up sharing housing with an abusive person. And if they had just known, it never would have happened.
Right.
And the person who commits the violence would have been, if them being publicly exposed were constantly on the line, that is a major disincentive. That is a major discouragement to choosing, again, because they're choosing it, to choosing to commit violence in the domestic setting, in an intimate partner setting. And so whenever we push this out, like the data and the accuracy of all this, like this is not like by sticking with names and pictures and the crime, and really not a lot of other information, because we don't want to empower vigilantism, which is a big concern of the ACLU. Like, the ACLU is in general kind of opposed to these kinds of registries.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes, in general, the ACLU is because they're worried about it being punitive, and they are concerned about vigilantism, putting these people on public registries.
So it's not you can, like, you have an enemy and you can go after them and ruin their life. It's just they were convicted of this abusive crime. We're just going to make a database so you can see easily that they were convicted.
Yes.
Like the sex offender one.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So
it's important to, like, it's not this is right or wrong. It's like, we need to handle it the right way. And you've already thought about the best way to handle it. And it will help lessen abuse.
That's it. That's it. And one of the really important things about this policy is that it's not just about like passing a law and then patting ourselves on the back and walking away from it. Like, we want to create a citizen advisory board with, community experts who have been involved in domestic abuse and victim advocacy. And we want to actually involve people who are already working with victims and helping them, so that we have an advisory board that can also be part of monitoring the data after we've implemented a law like this and created a registry. Because I am completely convinced that we will immediately begin to see a decrease in the number of offenses in domestic.
Oh, you're so right. Because I've seen it in my real life. When you shine a light on, abusive behavior, it lessens that abuse.
And this is so big for Indiana, because, again, one of the things that is not common knowledge is that Indiana regularly ranks in the top 5 states in the country for reports of domestic abuse. I
know it's going on in Harrison County. Harrison County is a county where there's a lot of people struggling. There's a lot of people stuck in relationships that aren't healthy. I know it's going on here. And that's why when you explain this, when I was sitting at you with a meeting and you explain what you're doing, my heart just opened up to, like, well, I think it's possible that we could get you elected. And I think it's possible that a bunch of people will help push this and talk to the needed people you would need to agree to make this bill a law.
Yes.
I have a spark of hope. What you are doing right now, my friend, could help my neighbors in this community that are hurting. And it's just so rare and needed. We need hope right now, Ethan.
Yes.
It is scary out there. The news is rough. Our government is murdering people and not taking accountability for it. I mean, it is rough right now. And I'm just thank you. Thank you you're not getting paid to do this. You're spending time away from your beautiful wife and your beautiful child. And you are trying to make the people in this state's lives better. And I just am so thankful for you. And so here's what we got to do, everybody. We need to help get Ethan Sweetland-May elected. There's a primary May 5th. Come out, vote for him, vote for me if you want, vote for Tim Peck. Those are the, and then November vote. Is it November 3rd?
Yep, it is.
And then
it's 264 days.
Besides that, everybody, tell everyone, this is a bipartisan. It doesn't matter whether you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian, don't vote. This is something most people would like to happen.
Yes.
We're glad we have the sex offender list.
Right.
Let's do this for domestic abuse. Let's do this. Right. So we can do our part. We got to get them. We got to get out the vote. We got to vote. We got to tell everybody. We have to talk about politics. That day where we don't talk about religion and politics has ended if we are going to protect our country and our freedoms. So, step one, get Ethan elected. Let's say you win. I'm using Project Next to push this. I'm using my friends that will be elected in the state house and the state senate. I'm calling them. I'm pushing this. I'm working with Hoosier Action. I'm getting my friends that I know at Hoosier Action to push this. Everybody else is going to work on it. So it doesn't stop at getting you elected. Then we got to push the 50 state senators and the 100 state house. We got to push the majority of them to vote for it. Right?
Yes.
And so, and then once it gets passed, what you said, we got to make sure we're doing it the best way possible so that it's not about revenge, but it's about stopping the abuse, lessening it.
And Sarah, I know we're kind of wrapping up here, and I just again, referencing Chuck Derry here. This is something that I really want to drive home about why I believe the registry is necessary. Why merely, the thing is, so we talk about, because again, dispelling the myth that this is about psychological, problems or trauma that is driving.
They can't help it. Poor them. Right. It's just one time.
Psychological therapy is designed for people who are suffering and are victims of trauma or mental health conditions, right? It is not designed for working with perpetrators of intentional harm. I am quoting Chuck Derry when I say that. Psychology is not designed for working with perpetrators of intentional harm, and it is not an effective method for creating change. And Chuck Derry says we need to attend to the intentionality of these behaviors towards women and children and others, and accept that this behavior is based on greed, selfishness, and self-interest. As a compassionate individual doing this work, how do I keep my compassion if I accept that this individual is doing these things intentionally? That is when I first read that was a major reason why it changed my mind about, I didn't have an opinion one way or the other, but I began to think that this is something that we need to do, because this is not about wounded people that are lashing out and doing harmful things.
Making one mistake. Right.
This is about perpetrators of intentional harm and why they are incentivized to do it, and how we can take the incentives away. And that's why I want to create this policy, because I truly believe that it will make women and families safer in Indiana. And that is, if there is any reason to run for public office or try to make a difference, it is so that we can make people safer, and so that we can, of course, as well, help make things more affordable. But that's a conversation for...
I'm putting it in the atmosphere. Let's picture the future here. Let's picture the future. We do the work, everybody. We help get Ethan elected. We help push this bill. This bill becomes a law. Can you imagine that feeling of, we're going to help people? Yes. We're going to help lessen abuse. I know Treva Hodges passed something in her own little town of Charlestown when she first got elected. It was like one of the first things she did, where she set up some type of place for when a person is not safe in their home. They can come, and there is a safe place, and there's resources, and there's things to do. And she had just set it up, and she said so far just a couple people had used it. She said was worth all her effort, all her hours of work. She helped those couple people, and I wonder how many people she's helped by now, because she's been elected twice now.
Yes.
And I'm just like, think about that. Yes. Ethan, on your rough days when you're away from your family and you're driving to some weird place to put a sign up and you're like, does any car drive past here? Like just imagine that, because this is really possible. That's another thing I'm so pumped about. I understand enough about how bills get made into law and all the people that get involved. And Tony Hostetler was on the show commenting. That's a person that helps. He works with Hoosier Action. He helps push legislation. He's supporting this. Oh, well, that's a good person. I know enough of the steps to see that this is possible. So I'm really hopeful, and I would love to use Project Next to continue to help. Now, how do we get you elected, Ethan? How do you get assigned? So you're state Senate 47, District 47. Right. So look that up and see if you're in District 47, yes. But it's Floyd, Harrison, Clark, Washington.
Floyd, Washington, and Harrison. And it's most of Floyd. It's not all of Floyd. The line is really wonky.
Nick Marshall has a little. He's running.
Nick Marshall, District 45 has a chunk of Floyd County. But I have District 47 has the lion's share of Floyd County and all of Harrison, and I believe all of Washington. There's maybe a very thin.
Almost all of Washington. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yes. See, what's interesting, you all, is I'm running for state house. That's half the size of Senate because there's 100 House and 50 Senate. And so mine is inside where Ethan's running. So I can, every place where I am trying to campaign, I can also campaign for Ethan. Half of the places you're at, you can mention me. Yeah. Absolutely. So you guys, if they want a sign, what do we do to get a sign?
Please follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram.
You're also really good at making videos, and they're very entertaining. And I always cannot wait to see. I loved your shoveling one where you lifted it above your heart, and then you fell down, and you were like, "Don't lift the shovel above your heart."
Yes, pictures are worth 1,000 words.
Check out his stuff, guys. If you want good video content, like you're eating lunch, just go to Ethan's TikTok or Instagram and just look at his videos because they're fantastic.
Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate that. So if you can follow me there, you can also message me there. If you'd like a sign, we just got our first batch of yard signs, and we've given out about I think close to 40 already.
Good job. I'm so proud of you.
Great. So please follow me on social media. If you'd like to
signs cost $10. If you can help pay for the sign,
if you can help us cover the,
don't worry about it.
Exactly. If you can help us cover the cost of the signs, it's great, but don't let that be a barrier. The signs do no good.
You're on Act Blue, right? Do we just type in Ethan Sweetland-May at Act Blue to donate?
I have a website, ethanforstatesenate.com. You can go there, and I've got my calendar up there. You can see where I'm going to be next. We're doing town halls every 2 weeks, which is not just part of our campaign.
Except for the time you got the flu, Ethan.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I caught the death a few weeks ago. It was awful, but we rescheduled that town hall. We're going to do a live, we're going to do an online town hall on the 15th, coming up here in just a little bit on Sunday. That's going to be in the afternoon. We're going to be live on Facebook and on TikTok. But then the following Saturday, we have we rescheduled the one that I had the flu for. And so that's going to be at the Carnegie Library, called the Cultural Arts Center, sometimes in downtown New Albany. And we're going to be there on Saturday afternoon, the 21st, from 2:45 to 4:30. That's going to be in person. The entrance is off Bank Street. You just take the elevator or stairs down to the basement. It's a big, great room they have there.
Sweet.
But yes, and then we're going to be back in Harrison County on March
1st. So March 1st, you're going to be at, was it Harrison County Community Foundation?
That's right. The foundation.
That's where we have our DEM meetings, you all.
That's right. We're going to be there from 6 to 8 o'clock on March 1st.
I want to try to come to that, and I want to try to post it for Project Next if I can, if my husband can watch our children. We'll see. So I will try.
Understood. You're doing
and I would like to try to help. You and I need to do a live on Harrison County DEM Facebook about that.
Absolutely.
We need to do some social media.
So one other thing I want to say about electing me is that there are about 135,000 people in District 47, and about 40,000 vote in the midterms for state Senate.
Wow.
If everybody that voted for a Democrat for state Senate in the last 3 elections finds one person who didn't vote and gets them to the polls in November, will win. If everybody that voted for a Democrat for state Senate in the last election, because it's almost the exact same number turnout every time. The rolls for the last 3 elections are almost identical for the last 3 elections for state Senate. And if you voted for a Democrat for state Senate and you find one person that did not vote last time, and you want to see this domestic violence registry get created, if you want to see the cost of living come down in our communities, bring one person who didn't vote last time. And if everyone does that, we're going to win in a landslide, because
that everybody needs to know that this race, your race, is so winnable.
It's very winnable.
So possible, especially for the circumstances we're in right now in this moment for 2026.
Yep.
So have
People are
hope.
tired.
I always meet people that are Democrats and are like, well, I don't vote because we don't win. I'm like, well, that's why we don't win, because you don't vote.
It is. People are tired of petty culture war grievance. They're tired of seeing our schools get gutted. They're tired of seeing the attacks on our libraries and on the foundational institutions that make our communities safe and desirable places to live. And if you're ready for change, if you're ready for somebody that's going to take meaningful action and not pass laws about bathrooms, but actually do things that make women and children safer, like creating trackers like our domestic abuse and recidivism tracker, please vote for me. Tell your friends, sign up for our newsletter, follow me on social media. We're going to be knocking 10,000 doors in the next 9 months, and it's going to be really fun. So if you'd like to volunteer, we also on my website have a way for you to volunteer, put your information in. You can volunteer as much as you want or as little as you want.
You can do what type of volunteering you want.
That's right.
You don't have to do things that scare you. Do the ones that you want to do.
This is about organizing our community so that we can do what we really need to do, which is take power back. All injustice is rooted in an imbalance of power. And if you want to fix what's broken and bring justice back to our communities, we have to fix the balance of power. And that's what elections about. Elections are about bringing power back to the communities that they have been stolen from.
And that's what Project Next is about, because
Absolutely.
we have a lot of media we get like Louisville media, and that doesn't really help us in Southern Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard to get local stories reported on. And so I love using my media company that I started with Tim to highlight the things that need to be highlighted. This is major news.
You're doing the Lord's work, Sarah. Like, really. you and Tim,
I like being truthful. I like being me. I like using my talents to make this place a tiny bit better. And I was talking to Kate from Hoosier Action. I love her so much. Hopefully she's going to be on the show soon.
Oh, amazing.
And she was like, don't you want to live a big life so that we can make things a little bit better for people? I'm like, that's what you're doing too. You're doing it. Live a big life so that we can make people's lives a tiny bit better. And it's worth it. It's hard, but it's also wonderful. Like, I wouldn't know you. I wouldn't have met Ethan Sweetland-May if I wasn't doing this work, not getting paid for it, but and so what a gift. It's like on my hard day, I'll be like, yeah, but Ethan's my friend now. That's nice.
Right back at you, Sarah. I mean, yeah, and that's like, this is about building community. It is about so much about modern life and the way that things have been, things that have gone with social media and everything fractures us, it isolates us, it discourages us. But these, like, at the heart of community-based politics is about uniting people and is about making visible how much we all have in common and how we can work towards common good that makes life better and safer for everyone.
Also, this is so funny. You're not going to know I'm going to talk about this, but it's almost Valentine's Day. And I want to highlight that you are very happily married in a beautiful relationship. And I am too. And so is Tim. And I just want to say how beautiful that is, because it's sort of rare. I think that if you are truly, really, really happily in love and you've been with a person for a while, that's something we kind of should talk about. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to use Project Next, because how do we highlight, how do you get that happiness in your relationship? Because in our culture, we really don't do a great job of teaching it. Of like I want my 3 kids to be really happy in their love. And so it's like, well, how do I model and teach it to them? Because I didn't have it modeled to me. I had to figure it out. My husband and I started therapy, and we've been doing it for a while, and it's really helped, because we both do what the therapist says. And then it's like, oh, I'm happier now than I've ever been in my whole freaking life. So I just want to shine a light that's really nice that you are happily married, and it shows a lot about what a wonderful human you are.
Yes, my wife Aberlyn and I have been married for 16 years.
She seems incredible, and I want to get to know her better.
She's amazing. She's amazing. We were very young when we got married, and we've had lots of help along the way. Nobody can figure this stuff out on your own. If you're like, if people are having a hard time, like, nobody can figure this stuff out on your own. We are all working from the best tools and toolbox that we have. And a lot of times getting better tools and getting a better understanding is all the difference. You talk about going to therapy, Sarah. Like I've attended therapy for a long time now as well, but there have been others along the way. Gottman.
We do Gottman on our therapist does Gottman.
Gottman Institute is an invaluable resource. The book, The Science of Trust, changed my life, changed a lot.
And I recommend following the Gottman principles for yourself. Like loving yourself that much really helps too. I read a book where the main character did that. And I was like, oh, duh, that's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Fabulous. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So, but yeah.
It's so awesome. Yeah. Maybe we could talk about it sometime. I would like to do a show with you about men and boys and helping them, because in our culture, we, especially on the far to the right culture and the Christian nationalism type culture, men have very little allowance of showing their true self and their true feelings. So I'd like to do a show with you about it, because I'm not a man. You are one that does this well. You model it well. And I think that we could maybe help some people by just because I worry about our children. I worry about our boys. I worry about our men that are then in turn hurting our women. I worry about all of this, and I want all of us to be healthier and happier so that we're hurting fewer people.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, it really is about ending these invisible silent cycles. Whether we're men or whether we're women, like ending.
It's so private. It's so quiet.
Exactly. Ending these cycles that people get stuck in generationally, that encourage violence and encourage isolation and encourage self-harm. Ending these cycles is all about creating visibility, getting rid of shame, creating accountability, and inviting acceptance and love for things that have been invisible and that need to be understood and brought into the light.
Just forgiving people for their own mistakes. We're so unforgiving in this culture. Yeah, we gotta talk about it again. So I'd love to have you on again.
That'd be great.
I'll try to get your town hall. Follow Ethan Sweetland-May, everybody. Please share this episode with at least one person, especially if it's one person that lives in Senate District 47. And let's get this wonderful man elected, and then let's help push this DART program to track domestic abusers and to prevent abuse, to lessen abuse. This is so doable. We can do this. We can get you elected, and we can push this, and we can make this a law. And then we're gonna have a party.
so much to get done, so much to celebrate whenever we actually make.
I really like to envision it happening. I really like to think of that moment, like you sitting there, like realizing it happened. I really like to see that, because it helps give me the energy to push.
Sarah, if you have anything, and you have a lot of things, but you have energy. So I will take a chapter from your book and do some visualization. Yeah. It's awesome.
Are you saying I have energy? What are you talking about? Yes, that is true.
It's fabulous. It's fabulous.
And I'm going to use it to help you get elected, my friend.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you for everything you're doing. Give your wife a big hug for me. Tell her that I love her. I love her photography. I like it when she posts pictures on her Instagram stories. They make me happy. Just throwing that out there. Everybody, thank you so much for listening to this episode. It's really been helpful for my mental health. Let's push this out. Let's get Ethan elected. Let's save Indiana. There's so many people pushing Indiana forward, pushing Indiana to get better, to demand better. And if we can vote for these people and highlight the other people organizing good stuff, we can make this state better. It is possible. I hope you have a great day. I know that you're super busy. Thanks for making so much time.
No, thank you so much, Sarah. This is fabulous. I can't wait to do it again sometime. And
I think, are you going to the Mardi Gras thing on Tuesday? Isn't there a Mardi Gras?
I am not. I wish I could, but no,
But you're going to be at the gala, the February 28th.
Yes, I'll be at the Harrison County Dims Gala. Absolutely. I'll see you there if I don't see you soon.
It does make it better when I'm going to all these events. I get to see my friends. That's nice. So
absolutely.
Good luck campaigning. You guys support Ethan. He's on Act Blue, Ethan Sweetland-May, and tell people about him, and let's save Indiana. Save Indiana. Bye, everybody. Love you guys. Happy Valentine's Day. I hope everybody has love. And I love you. I love you. Bye, guys.
Bye.